In this video, I am going to discuss about transactional analysis and how it is related to the theory of personality, communication, and also the practice of psychotherapy. Hi, this is Sameer Khan from Psych E-Pathshala. If you have not subscribed to our channel yet, please go and click the subscribe button and hit the bell icon to get notified for future videos on psychology and related topics. Thanks to you, we are a community of 1,000 subscribers on this channel, so there is a special giveaway for you in the description. Also, watch this video till the end because in the end, I am going to discuss how you can solve questions related to transactional analysis similar to the ones asked in previous NTA NET JRF examinations. In the 1950s to 60s, American psychiatrist Eric Berne built on Freud's psychodynamic model, particularly that of the ego state, to develop a psychology of human interactions called transactional analysis. If you want to learn about the psychodynamic model by Freud, I'll put a link in the description box as soon as we have the video on our channel. Or you can go and watch the video by clicking the I at the top right corner of this video. Coming back to transactional analysis. This theory was popularized in the book Games People Play by Berne that was published in 1964. The book marked a blossoming of interest in transactional analysis, especially in the United States of America. It was demonstrated by common usage of transactional analysis terms such as OK, psychological games, and strokes. We will discuss these terms later in the due course of this video, so watch till the end. In terms of understanding personality, transactional analysis is based on the theory that we each have three ego states: parent, adult, and child. An ego state is the subjectively experienced reality of a person's mental and bodily ego with the original contents of this time period. The parent ego state is a set of feelings, attitudes, and behavior patterns which resemble those of our parental figure as we have seen them in our childhood. The child ego state is a set of feelings, attitude, and behavior patterns which are similar to our own childhood. Thus, both the parent and child ego states are archaic in a sense that they represent our past. In contrast to both of them, adult ego state is characterized by autonomous, here and now feelings, attitudes, and behaviors. The three ego states of parent, adult, and child was drawn by Berne based on the works of Fedden, Wise, and Glover. We can play two types of parent. One is the nurturing parent who is caring and concerned more or less like a mother figure. Both men and women can have this parent ego state. They try to keep the other person's child ego state contented, offer safe space and unconditioned love to calm the child in distress. Another type of parent is the controlling or critical parent who tries to make the child do as parents want them to do. At times, they may transfer values or beliefs to the child or may use the child as a scapegoat. Child ego states can be three types. One is the natural child who is not self-aware and can be characterized by making noises like a child does, noises such as yippee or woohoo. They are playful and often open and vulnerable. Another child can be the little professor who is always curious and willing to explore new things, often to the dismay of a controlling parent. A combination of natural child and little professor is known as the free child. The adaptive child reacts to the environment either by changing themselves by being very good or by rebelling against the environment, thus being a misfit or naughty child. Adult ego state lies between the parent and the child to maintain a balance. Ego states can be diagnosed. There are four ways to diagnose ego state. The first one, behavioral way. It is based on observable words, voice tones, gestures, expressions, etc. The second one, social way. Here, we observe what kind of reactions the subject is eliciting from other people. The third one, historical way. Here, we learn the experience of that person that can be traced back to the past that actually occurred. Just imagine you feeling extremely agitated by a spouse because they criticized you just the way your parent did when you were a child. Here, you are communicating from your child ego state. Drop a comment in the comment section below this video if you come up with any other examples. The last way of diagnosing ego state is phenomenological way. This is based on subjective self-experience, how the person is viewing his or her own feeling, attitude, and behavior. All four diagnoses are necessary for a sufficient identification of an ego state. And Byrne emphasized the need for both objective or observable and subjective or phenomenological verification for correct diagnosis. Thus, it required the collaboration of both therapist and client. Byrne also believed that the ego states or the states of mind are present in all humans irrespective of their age, meaning an adult man may have a child ego state. Byrne believed that a lot of people get stuck in one ego state more than the other two, and that this may be due to early childhood experiences, meaning an adult with a child ego state will respond to all the situations in a childlike manner. Now let me discuss what are the four basic assumptions of transactional analysis. Firstly, transactional analysis believes that people are born with okayness, which means a basic drive for growth and health. This can be encapsulated in the phrase, "I am okay, you are okay." This represents mutual respect for self and other and a conviction and faith in human nature to live harmoniously if given the right conditions. These are called life positions. According to Byrne, in childhood we have a life position assigned to us. These life positions can be A. I am not okay, you are okay. B. I am not okay, you are not okay. C. I am okay, you are not okay. And D. I am okay, you are okay. I talked about the last life position earlier. Second assumption is that everyone has the capacity to think and therefore to take responsibility for their actions. Third assumption is people decide their own destiny and therefore these decisions can be changed. These decisions may be cognitive and conscious. They can also be unconscious, simply at the thought level, and also bodily or visceral. This assumption is the basis of redecision work in transactional analysis. The fourth assumption is that a general goal in life for people is autonomy, a word that has a particular meaning in transactional analysis. Byrne defined autonomy as the release or recovery of our capacity for awareness, spontaneity, and intimacy. It means autonomy is not a selfish individual goal. It is an outcome that requires relationships with others. Autonomy may be viewed as a social goal not only for individuals but also for groups, organizations, communities, and societies. Now let me discuss about what are the views of transactional analysis about human nature. TA has its theoretical roots in the psychoanalytic tradition, although it is also influenced by the cognitive behavioral approach and social theory, and it is philosophically rooted in a humanistic existential tradition that promotes the power of the individual to take charge of his or her own life, to make changes, and to live in harmony with him or herself and others. Therefore, transactional analysis is an optimistic theory based on the assumption that people can change despite an unfortunate event of the past. It also focuses on four methods of understanding and predicting human behavior. The first one is structural analysis, that means understanding what is happening within the person. Second one is transactional analysis, that means describing what happens between two or more people. Third is game analysis, which means understanding transactions that lead to bad feelings. The fourth one is script analysis, which aims to understand a person's life plan. Within the transactional analysis paradigm was a perspective of life scripts that simply proposed that people make decisions early in life in response to permissions and injunctions from significant others, and sometimes they need to make better decisions later. Transactional analysis recognizes that the past influences the present. In transactional analysis, an infant comes into the world with psychobiological hunger. That is the needs and desires the infant is born with. From the very beginning, there is the interplay between psychobiological hungers and the experiences of early life. This begins the process called script or life plan. From the first moment, we are shaped by what happens to us, by the experiences and events, and importantly, the relationships that we see around us and in which we are involved. We internalize these early relationships as ego states, and we form conclusions, also known as script decisions, about ourselves, about others, and about the world. Thus, our personality is formed and becomes the frame of reference or filter through which we interpret our experiences later in our lives. In the present, as we engage with people and events, we respond with an internal experience such as thoughts, feelings, embodied adaptations, relational expectations, etc., and external behavior known as transactions and games, all of which arise from our frame of reference and also reinforce it by bringing about repeating outcomes and patterns of relating. Some of these learned ways of being can be fluid, adaptable, and effective, simply providing sufficient structure as we engage with our environment. Some of these patterns are fixed and limiting as a result of trauma or lack of environmental support, script beliefs, and adaptations. They become the only way we know of getting our needs met. They are enough to survive. They are early relational patterns, the only way we know of being in relationship. In therapy, transactional analysis attempts to identify these patterns in communication and tries to figure out a way to change them to help the client. Psychopathology in transactional analysis is defined as the exclusion or contamination of ego states. Contamination refers to the influence of one ego state over one's relationships, and that person remains unaware of it. Psychopathology may also manifest itself in terms of symbiosis, that is, when two or more individuals develop a codependent relationship based on script decisions. Now, I'm going to talk about how these scripts affect our perception of ourselves and others and our environment. And also, we are going to learn the concept of discounting, racket feeling, and transaction. In transactional analysis, discounting and racket feeling describe the process of viewing the world through a scripted frame of reference. Discounting means ignoring or minimizing some aspects of ourselves, others, or the situation. Racket feelings are about exaggerating others and re-experiencing familiar feelings that accompany equally familiar thoughts and conclusions about self and life. If someone says, "I am completely useless, my boss says so, it must be true," what are they doing? Are they using discounting? Or are they using racket feeling? Just pause right here now and drop your answer in the comment section. Moving on. Transaction, according to Byrne, is an interaction or relational interchange between individuals. Byrne gave certain theories about these interchange or communication between individuals. All communications can be analyzed in terms of transactions between ego states. This helps to understand how human beings engage with each other, both in achieving real contact and intimacy, but also in repeating limited patterns of relating, also known as games. They can have feelings, thoughts, attitudes, and behavior of parent absorbed from their parent figures. They can have feelings, thoughts, attitudes, and behavior of adult appropriate to here and now. They may also have feelings, thoughts, attitudes, and behavior of child carried forward from their own childhood. In analyzing such transactions, Byrne identified 3 rules of communication. Rule number 1, when we communicate or transact from complementary ego states, that is between parent and parent, adult and adult, child and child, and parent and child, communication can continue indefinitely. Rule number 2, a break in communication is described as a crossed transaction. When a transaction is crossed, In other words, the ego state that responds to a communication is not the one that was addressed. There is a break in communication, and one or both individuals will need to shift ego states in order to re-establish a connection. An adult ego state of Mr. X trying to communicate with another adult ego state of Mr. Y. But Mr. Y is responding from his child ego state and expecting Mr. X to receive the message as a child. Here, the transaction is crossed and one of them need to change their ego state to continue the conversation. Cross transactions can be problematic. However, they can also be therapeutic as well. For example, when a therapist or a client crosses an unhelpful, repetitive communication. Rule number 3. The behavioral outcome of an ulterior transaction is determined at the psychological and not at the social level. This is based on the idea that non-verbal or ulterior psychological communications have more effect than social level communications. Burns' understanding of an ulterior transaction was that it is likely to be driven by script. Novellino identified a fourth rule or type of communication by which an unconscious message is transmitted from adult to adult, for example, from client to therapist, not as a script enactment, but in order to communicate an important but unconscious experience. Next concept that we are going to describe is called game. Game is the name Burns gave to describe those repeating patterns of interaction with others in which script beliefs are enacted relationally and lead to a payoff or reinforcement of the script, normally for both or all people involved. The word game is not intended to imply pleasure or fun. On the contrary, games are the most painful ways we relate to others, leading to an unconscious mutual confirmation of our scripts. In classical transactional analysis, practitioners sought to avoid games with their clients, using clear contracts and constant vigilance. They challenged clients about their patterns and invited here and now self-responsibility. Nowadays, relational transactional analysts recognize that sometimes it is only through our games that unconscious processes are revealed. They therefore welcome games in the consulting room as being the source of important understanding and learning for the client. Next idea proposed by Burns is called strokes. Stroke is the fundamental unit of social action. A stroke can be physical, like a handshake, verbal, like a compliment, or non-verbal, like a nod of the head. It could also be a hello, go away, or a dismissive wave of the hand. All of these acknowledge that the other person exists. Burns introduced the idea of strokes into transactional analysis based upon the work of René Spitz. Spitz observed that infants deprived of cuddling, touching, and handling, in other words, not receiving any physical strokes, were more likely to experience emotional and physical difficulties. Burns took Spitz's observations of these infants and developed theories about the needs of adults for strokes. Burns hypothesized that adults do need physical contact just like infants, but have learned to substitute other types of recognition for physical stimulation. Therefore, while an infant needs cuddling, an adult craves a smile, a wink, a hand gesture, or some other form of recognition. Burns defined this by the term recognition hunger or stroke hunger. He said that we are all desperately seeking strokes from others and that a lot of what we do is in order to be stroked. Understanding how people give and receive both positive and negative strokes and changing the unhealthy patterns of stroking are important aspects of transactional analysis. Burns mentioned in his work that strokes can be either positive or negative. Also, each type of stroke can be conditional or unconditional. According to him, any stroke is better than no strokes. In our experience with the world and other people, we develop stroke filters. Therefore, some strokes reach us and some do not. Sometimes strokes reach us in a distorted manner due to these filters. For example, with a stroke filter that only allows negative strokes to pass through, we will only allow us to perceive the negative comments of others and not acknowledge the positive comments on our online posts. Now let me explain the theory of change. Byrne defined change in terms of cure, which he viewed as a progressive process involving 4 stages. Stage 1, social control. That is the control of dysfunctional social behavior. Stage 2, symptomatic relief. That is the personal relief of subjectively experienced symptoms. Stage 3, transference cure, which is when the client can stay out of their script as long as the therapist is around, either literally or in their head. Stage 4, script cure. This is when the person's own adult ego state takes over the previous role of the therapist and the person makes autonomous decisions. Next, I will explain the skills and strategies in transactional analysis. Transactional analysis originally took a unilateral actionist approach to change the treatment, focusing largely on material that was agreeable to conscious cognitive awareness. Based on the contractual method and their diagnosis of the client, practitioners negotiated, defined, and followed a mutually agreed treatment plan. The role of the therapist was to closely observe the client's here and now words, gestures, facial expressions, as well as content, and aimed to help the client to see how their script was playing out in the present. Byrne offered a precise sequence of operations, starting with inquiring into the situation, then raising awareness, which means strengthening the adult ego state of script, beliefs, and patterns, and finally interpreting deeper unconscious processes. There are many types of transactional analysis which developed in later years. They are psychoanalytic transactional analysis by Moiso and Novellino, and relational transactional analysis by Hargadin and Sills. Relational TA examines the deconfusion of the child by elaborating Byrne's therapeutic operations as empathic transactions. In relational therapy, the relationship between therapist and client is the vehicle in which the client can express both his self-experience and pattern of relating, including sometimes deeply unconscious or unsymbolized processes, which often emerge as games. Summers and Tudor gave description of co-creative transactional analysis, which is a present-centered theory of expanding adult ego state. Now you may be interested to know what are the prospects of most TA concepts in research. Interestingly, there are many methods to measure the concepts of TA. The life script can be assessed using questionnaires. Functional modes of ego states can be assessed using egogram. Passivity and discounting can be assessed using the discount matrix. The stroke economy can be assessed using the stroking profile. Therefore, it can be said that the concepts of transactional analysis have psychometric values and are fairly empirical. Time for some trivia about transactional analysis. What do you say after you say hello? This is Byrne's last book and by far the most readable of his 9 books. In it, he brings together his development of transactional analysis over some 20 years, together with his interest in cross-cultural psychology, and uses independent thinking and fairy tales to illustrate the psychology of human destiny from the cradle to the grave. Byrne proposed that there is a creative force in human nature which strives for growth and completion. Alongside Freud's instinctual drives Thanatos and Eros, Byrne proposed that there is a third drive, physis, which describes the creative life instinct. In his work and writing, Byrne also referred to vis medicatrix naturae, or the curative power of nature. There are 3 international organizations of transactional analysis: International TA Association, ITAA, the European Association for TA, EATA, and the Australasian Federation of TA Associations, FTAA. They coordinate international certifying examinations which accredit both practitioners in the 4 different fields of application and also teachers and supervisors of TA. In Britain, TA has grown from initial seminar groups in the early 1960s through the first national conference of the Institute of Transactional Analysis based in the United Kingdom in 1974 to a flourishing community comprising of 1,000 people in 4 national TA organizations. As promised, now I'm going to discuss about how to solve the 2 questions asked in NTA NET JRF Psychology paper in December 2019. In the first question, we see X asking what time is it. It is evident from the statement that X is asking from an adult ego state and is expecting a response from the adult ego state of Y. Y in return is also responding from the adult ego state as expected by X. As Y's ego state complements X's expectation, we may call this an adult-to-adult complementary transaction. In the next question, we can see that X is making a statement from his child ego state and expecting Y to receive it from a child ego state. Therefore, the first is a child-to-child transaction. Y, on the other hand, is responding from an adult ego state, considering X will receive the response from an adult ego state. Here, it is an adult-to-adult transaction. Since none of them are complementing each other's expected ego state, this is a crossed transaction. Therefore, the answer is C. Thank you so much for watching this video. I believe you have some questions that you would drop in the comment section below, or you can just write down how much you like this video. Please click the like button and make sure you subscribe and hit the bell icon to get notified about our future videos. I am going to put the link to our Facebook page in the description. Please go and follow our page for other updates. You can send us an email too. The email ID is mentioned in the description. Also, claim your giveaway by clicking the link in the description and share this video with others. You can also go and watch other videos by clicking the boxes on the screen. So goodbye, take care. This is Samir Khan from Psych E-Pathshala. See you in the next video.